Jonah did not wake gently. He woke choking on air that burned his lungs and scraped his throat. His eyes flew open, but the sky above him was wrong. It was not blue. It was deep violet, stretched wide and endless, with thin clouds glowing like fatting embers. For a long moment he could only stare, confused and afraid. Cold wrapped around his body like a living thing. He tried to move and felt sharp pain across his skin. Sand, black and rough, pressed against him. When he looked down, panic rushed through his chest. He was naked. No suit, no boots, no communicator, nothing. The escape pod was gone. The mission was gone. Everything was gone. Jonah pushed himself up with shaking arms. His hands trembled so badly he collapsed again. His breath came fast and uneven. The wind blew across the strange land, carrying a low, humming sound, like the planet itself was whispering. This was not Earth. This was not anywhere he had planned to be. Memory returned in broken pieces, alarms screaming, red lights flashing, the violent spin as the pod tore away from the ship, then heat, too much heat, after that nothing. "I survived," he whispered, his lips barely moving. "Why?" He laughed once, short and empty. The sound felt wrong in the open air. Around him, tall crystal-like plants rose from the ground, gently chiming as the wind passed through them. Far away, something cried out. It was not an animal sound Jonah recognized. It was deep and slow, like mourning. The cold grew worse. Jonah curled inward, trying to protect himself. His teeth chattered. His skin burned, then numbed. He knew the signs. Hypothermia did not care what planet you were on. Naked flesh was still naked flesh. He thought of Earth, of rain on glass windows, of warm coffee cups and quiet mornings, of people who would never know where he vanished. "I don't want to die like this," he said to no one. The sky slowly darkened, as if night came faster on this world. Shadows stretched long across the sand. Jonah's vision blurred. He forced himself to stay awake, digging his fingers into the ground to feel something real. That was when he heard footsteps. At first he thought it was his imagination, but the sound came again, soft, careful, closer each time. Jonah's heart raced. Fear cut through the cold, sharp and sudden. Predator or person, it did not matter. He was helpless. He tried to stand, failed, tried again, failed harder. The footsteps stopped behind him. Jonah turned his head with great effort. She stood there silently. She was tall and slender, her shape close to human but not quite. Her skin glowed faintly blue, like moonlight on water. Her hair was dark and braided with small metallic pieces that caught the fading light. Her eyes, wide and silver, watched him with a mix of caution and shock. They stared at each other, frozen. Jonah raised his hands slowly, showing empty palms. His voice cracked as he spoke. "I'm not armed. I'm not dangerous." The words felt small and useless. The girl glanced at the sky, then back at his shaking body. Her expression softened. She took a step forward, then another. Up close, Jonah could see strange markings along her arms, thin lines that pulsed gently. "You are dying," she said quietly. Her voice was calm but heavy. "This world is not kind to the unprotected." She opened a pack at her side and pulled out a folded piece of fabric. Jonah flinched as she came closer, but she did not touch him directly. Instead, she gently draped the cloth over his shoulders. Warmth spread instantly, slow but real. Jonah gasped. The girl turned her face away, giving him dignity even when he had nothing. "I should not be here," she continued. "You should not exist." She finally looked back at him, her silver eyes serious. "But you fell from the sky," she said, "and that means something." Jonah clutched the fabric with weak hands, holding onto the warmth, and the moment like his life depended on it. Because it did, the warmth did not feel natural. Jonah noticed it slowly, like memory returning to frozen fingers. The fabric on his shoulders grew warmer the longer it touched him, as if it listened to his body and answered back. His shaking eased. His breathing slowed. Pain faded into a dull ache. He looked up again. The girl had stepped back, giving him space. She stood straight, staff resting against the ground. Its surface was smooth and dark, marked with faint symbols that glowed softly. Jonah did not understand them, but he felt power humming beneath the silence. "My name is Sally," she said after a moment. "You may speak yours." "Jonah," he replied. His voice was still weak but steadier now. "I'm human." Sally tasted the word with care. "Human," she repeated. "We have stories, old ones." Jonah swallowed. "Good stories." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "Warnings." That hurt more than the cold had. Sally motioned toward the crystal reeds nearby. "Come, night creatures will come soon. You cannot stay here." "I can't walk far," Jonah admitted. She studied him again, then nodded once. Without asking permission, she adjusted the fabric around him, securing it with a small clasp. Her movements were gentle, respectful. Then she offered her arm, not as support, but as balance. Jonah accepted. They moved slowly across the dark sand. Each step felt heavy, but Jonah forced himself forward. He refused to collapse again. Not now, not after being seen. As they walked, the land changed. The black sand gave way to smooth stone paths hidden beneath the surface. Crystals rose in curved arches, glowing softly as Sally passed, responding to something in her presence. "This place listens to you," Jonah said quietly. "It listens to us," Sally corrected, "but we stopped listening back." They reached a narrow opening in the rocks. Inside was a small shelter carved into the stone, hidden from the open sky. A faint light filled the space, warm and steady. Sally touched the wall and the glow brightened. Jonah sank down, exhausted. For a long moment neither spoke. The silence was not empty. It felt careful, like both were afraid to break it. Finally Jonah asked, "Why did you help me?" Sally did not answer right away. She knelt and placed her staff aside. "Because leaving you would have been easier," she said, "and I am tired of easy choices." She met his eyes. "Also because you had nothing, no weapon, no demand, only fear that matters." Jonah looked down at himself, at the simple fabric that now stood between him and death. "I didn't plan to arrive like this." "I know," she said. "No one arrives broken on purpose." She brought him a small bowl of liquid that shimmered faintly. Jonah hesitated. "It will not harm you," Sally said. "It will help your body adjust." He drank. The taste was strange but calming, like rain mixed with metal. Warmth spread through his chest. "Sally," Jonah said slowly, "your people, will they come looking for you?" Her shoulders stiffened. "Yes." "And me?" "They will fear you." Jonah sighed. "That's fair." Sally stood and walked to the entrance, watching the dark outside. "Our elders believe the sky brings ruin. They teach us to hide, to preserve, to never change." She turned back to him, silver eyes shining with quiet fire. "But you fell from the sky, alive, breathing, thinking." She stepped closer. "I believe that means something different." Jonah felt a strange weight settle in his chest. Not fear, not hope, but responsibility. "What do you want from me?" he asked. Sally did not smile. Her voice was steady, serious. "I want you to teach me how humans survive when everything is taken from them." Jonah thought of Earth again, of loss, of failure, of standing back up anyway. "I can try," he said. Sally nodded once. "Then rest. Tomorrow we begin something dangerous." Outside, the night creatures cried again. But inside the stone shelter, two strangers shared warmth, and the future quietly shifted direction. Jonah woke slowly, not from fear, but from sound. A low vibration moved through the stone floor, steady and deep, like a distant heartbeat. He opened his eyes and saw soft light filling the shelter. For the first time since the crash, he did not feel cold. His body still ached, but the sharp edge of pain was gone. He sat up carefully. Sally was already awake. She stood near the wall, pressing her palm against glowing symbols carved into the stone. The light changed with her touch, shifting gently, as if responding to her thoughts. "You are healing," she said without turning. "That is good." Jonah flexed his fingers. "I've had worse mornings," he replied. Then more seriously, "I owe you my life." Saley turned to face him. "Life creates debts whether we ask for them or not." She knelt and handed him another bowl of the shimmering liquid. This time, he drank without hesitation. They sat in silence for a while. It was not uncomfortable. It felt like both were listening for something unseen. Finally, Saley spoke. "My people will notice the energy shift. This shelter was not meant to be used anymore." "Why not?" Jonah asked. "Because it represents the past," she said, "and the elders fear the past as much as the future." She looked at him closely. "Helping you is already a crime." Jonah's chest tightened. "Then I'll leave," he said quickly. "As soon as I can stand long enough, I won't put you in danger." Saley shook her head. "It is already done. You are here, you exist. That cannot be undone." She rose and paced slowly, her steps quiet but restless. "When I was young, I asked why we stopped exploring the stars. I was punished for asking." Jonah frowned. "Punished for curiosity." "Yes," she answered simply. "We are taught survival is obedience." Jonah let out a breath. On Earth, survival was never that simple. He told her small stories, not of great wars or heroes, but of everyday humans, of people who lost homes and rebuilt, of mistakes made again and again and lessons learned the hard way. He spoke of failure honestly. Saley listened with full attention. "You are a strange species," she said softly. "You break yourselves, yet you keep going." Jonah smiled faintly. "We don't know how to stop." The shelter suddenly dimmed. Saley froze. "That is not natural," she whispered. The vibration returned, stronger now. Jonah felt it through his bones. "Drones," Saley said. "Searchers." Fear rose fast, hot and sharp. "They found us already?" Jonah asked. "Not exactly," she replied, "but they are close." She grabbed her staff and moved to the entrance, peering out through a narrow gap. Lights flickered across the crystals outside, sweeping the land in cold patterns. "They are scanning for energy," she said, "for signs of disruption." Jonah looked down at the glowing fabric wrapped around him. "Like me." "Yes," she said, then she faced him fully. "This is the price." Jonah stood, unsteady but determined. "Then tell me what to do." Saley hesitated, her voice lowered. "If I keep helping you, I will be hunted, labeled dangerous, cast out." Jonah met her gaze. "And if you stop?" "You will die," she said. The truth hung between them, heavy and unkind. Jonah nodded slowly. "Then we don't hide forever." Saley's eyes widened slightly. "What do you mean?" "I mean humans don't survive by staying quiet," he said. "We survive by adapting, by learning faster than fear." He took a careful step toward her. "You asked me to teach you how we survive when everything is taken. This is it." Saley searched his face as if looking for weakness. Instead, she found resolve. Finally, she exhaled. "Then understand this," she said. "If you stay, there is no safety, only movement, only risk." Jonah gave a tired smile. "Story of my life." Outside, the scanning lights drew closer. Saley tightened her grip on the staff. "Then we leave now," she said. "And once we do, there is no returning to what we were." Jonah pulled the fabric tighter around himself and followed her toward the dark. For the first time since waking on this alien world, he was no longer just surviving. He was choosing. The night air bit sharper than before. Jonah stumbled over jagged stones, dragging his bare feet across alien ground. Each step left a thin cut, each breath came in ragged gasps. Behind him, Saley's staff hummed softly, lighting their path with faint, pulsing blue. Shadows danced across the crystal reeds, casting strange patterns that made Jonah dizzy. Faster, she whispered, almost inaudibly. He nodded, though his legs shook. The sound of drones, small, sharp, and insect-like, buzzed from the distance. They were relentless. Their lights swept over the landscape, searching, probing, relentless as time itself. Jonah felt panic claw at his chest. "I can't run much longer," he admitted, voice shaking. Sally did not slow. She reached over and gripped his arm, steadying him. "You can, you must." Jonah wanted to argue, wanted to collapse and give up, but he remembered the warmth of her fabric, the gentle care in her eyes. She had chosen to help him despite the danger. How could he abandon her now? The terrain suddenly dropped away into a narrow canyon. Dark, deep, and jagged. Jonah froze, looking down. "We can't jump that," he said. Sally's silver eyes glinted in the dim light. "We will." Before he could protest, she grabbed his shoulders, urging him forward. They leapt together. Jonah felt the air tear past his face. Pain exploded in his ankles as they hit the rocky ground, but the fall had saved them from the scanning lights above. They didn't stop. Behind them, a loud metallic screech echoed. Drones had reached the edge of the canyon. Jonah could hear the whir of their wings, mechanical but alive, hunting him with cold precision. He tripped over a crystal root, falling hard, scraping his hands and knees. Pain screamed through him. "Get up," Sally hissed, pulling him to his feet. Jonah obeyed, not out of courage but because she believed he could. Each step burned, each breath tore at his chest, but he moved. Human endurance was stubborn. Even broken, they kept going. They reached a ridge. Jonah collapsed behind a large stone, gasping for air. Sally scanned the horizon. "We are almost there," she said, "just a little farther." But the drones weren't done. One hovered closer, scanning. Jonah's heart raced. He could see its mechanical limbs twitching, searching for heat, for movement. The soft hum of his life and her magic-wrapped staff seemed to scream in the cold night. Jonah's mind raced. Then he saw it, a power cell discarded from one of Sally's earlier devices. He picked it up, hands shaking. Sparks flew as he twisted wires together without knowing if it would work. "Jonah, what are you?" Sally began, but he cut her off. The small device exploded with blinding light, energy surging in all directions. Jonah was thrown back, hitting the ground hard. The drones reeled, systems fried, sparks flying into the night. Silence followed, heavy and complete. Sally ran to him, kneeling beside his battered body. "You did it," she whispered, awe in her voice. "You saved us." Jonah forced a weak smile, blood streaked across his face. "We survived," he muttered. She pressed a hand to his forehead. Her silver eyes shone, not with fear but with admiration. "Humans are strange creatures," she said softly. "You risk everything to protect what matters, even when it's hopeless." Jonah looked up at the violet sky. Pain and exhaustion were everywhere, but beneath it a flicker of something stronger, a spark of life, of hope, still burned. For the first time he realized the truth. On this alien world he had found purpose, and even hunted, even broken, he had not yet been defeated. The drones were gone, but the night remained alive with danger. Jonah clenched his fists. He was not ready to die, not yet. And beside him, Sally's presence reminded him why survival was more than instinct. It was choice. The ruins were silent but not dead. Jonah followed Sally through the broken stone arches, past crumbling walls etched with symbols that hummed faintly. Dust rose with each step, sparkling in the pale light like tiny stars. This place had been abandoned for centuries, yet energy lingered in the stones, quiet and patient. Jonah felt it under his feet, a subtle pulse that reminded him of life even in decay. "This place was for learning," Sally said softly, "but we forgot how." Jonah nodded. His own body still ached from the chase, the jumps, the scratches, but his mind was alert. For the first time since arriving, he felt he could do something other than survive. He could teach. Sally knelt beside a fallen stone and traced the symbols with her fingers. "Humans, you survive through mistakes," she said, almost in awe. You break yourselves and others, yet you grow stronger." Jonah smiled faintly. "That's one way to put it." Then he gestured at the ruins. "We can use what's here, learn from it, build, test, fail, and try again. That's how we survive when everything is taken." Sally's eyes shone silver. "Teach me," she whispered. For the next hours, Jonah drew diagrams in the dust. Simple lines, circles, arrows, everything humans used to explain ideas without words. He showed her how to test a mechanism, how to fail safely, how to observe and adapt. She listened carefully, her fingers hovering over the dust lines as if the lessons would leap into her mind by touch. "This is different," she said after a while. "We are taught to obey, to preserve, to not ask." "Yes," Jonah said, "but asking is how you survive. Learning is how you survive. Fear only slows you down." They worked together, day bleeding into night. Jonah taught her to weave energy from crystals, to manipulate light and heat without breaking it. Sally showed him how to listen to the world, to sense the faint hum of life in the ruins, to understand the land beneath their feet. Other young ones began to appear quietly, curious, cautious, drawn by the energy of change. They watched Jonah and Sally. Some copied silently, others tried experiments and failed. Jonah encouraged them, correcting gently, praising their courage to try. Slowly, hope spread. It was a fragile, flickering thing, but it grew. Machines that had lain dormant for centuries hummed softly again. Crystal gardens sprouted where dust once lay. Water flowed in channels long blocked. The elders observed from a distance, but they could not intervene. Jonah's lessons were not orders, they were questions, and curiosity was contagious. One evening, as Jonah rested against a smooth stone, Sally brought him a small bowl of the glowing liquid. "You should eat," she said, eyes soft. "You are too tired to keep going." He shook his head. "I can rest later. We need to finish this while they still watch. If they see progress, maybe fear will lose its hold." Sally knelt beside him, placing a hand on his arm. "You came from the sky with nothing," she said, "and now you give us everything. Your mind, your courage, even your pain." Jonah looked at her silver eyes. "Humans survive by giving too," he said quietly, "even when it hurts." The ruins hummed around them. Light pulsed in the stones. The young learners practiced beside the broken walls, energy weaving through their fingers, laughter and mistakes mingling. For the first time since the crash, Jonah felt more than survival. He felt purpose. He felt hope. And he knew that whatever came next, this alien world would never be the same again. The dawn was pale gold, and the ruins seemed softer in the early light. Jonah could barely move. His body had carried him too far through too much, and now it betrayed him. Each breath was a battle, each heartbeat a drum echoing in his chest. He leaned against a smooth stone wall, feeling the last of his strength slipping like water through his fingers. Sally knelt beside him, her silver eyes wide with worry. Her hands hovered over him, trembling slightly, though she tried to hide it. "I can save you," she said, her voice firm yet tender. "There is healing technology in the Elder's vault. I can bring it to you." Jonah shook his head slowly. Weakness pulled at his muscles, but he forced himself to speak. "Too late, but listen." His fingers dug into the stone as if holding on to life itself. "I have something for you, something important." Sally tilted her head, confused, but did not move. He pressed the small wrist tag from Earth into her hands. Its surface flickered, glowing faintly. Jonah whispered instructions, and the device projected light into the air. Holographic images shimmered above it. Humans, cities, forests, oceans, stories of triumph and failure, of hope and courage. "These are humans," Jonah said, voice thin. "We make mistakes, we fall, we hurt, but we also rise, we try again, always. You must remember you don't need to copy us, just learn." Sally's hand trembled as she reached to touch the projection. The light reflected in her silver eyes, filling them with awe and something Jonah had not expected, understanding. "You gave me more than life," she whispered. "You gave me everything." Jonah managed a small, tired smile. "I came here with nothing," he said softly. "No weapons, no power, nothing, but we built hope. That is the last gift I leave. Teach it well." A faint wind stirred through the ruins, and for a moment the world seemed to hold its breath. Jonah's body grew colder, weaker, but his mind stayed alive long enough to see her nod. She pressed her forehead to his, a silent promise passing between them. "You will not be forgotten," Saley said, voice breaking. "Your courage, your mind, it will guide us." Jonah closed his eyes, the warmth of the fabric and the life he had touched clinging to him. He could feel the pulse of the planet through Saley, the young learners, the ruins coming back to life. He was leaving, but not in vain. He exhaled once, long and quiet, and a smile brushed his lips. Humans always left a mark, even when everything was taken. Saley stayed beside him, holding the wrist tag close, watching as the life of the stranger who had fallen from the sky slowly faded into legend. Outside, the light of dawn painted the crystals gold, the energy of the ruins rising like a heartbeat in the new day. The world was waking, and for the first time, it felt ready to change. Jonah had fallen from the sky, stripped of everything, yet he had left behind something more powerful than survival. He had left the spark of hope. And that spark was enough. Years had passed, but the violet world had not forgotten. Ships from distant stars landed gently on the crystal plains, their hulls reflecting the soft gold light of dawn. Explorers stepped onto the soil, expecting ruins, decay, silence. Instead, they found cities alive with color, powered by singing crystals and flowing water channels that gleamed like rivers of glass. Machines hummed quietly, restored and renewed, but with a purpose they had never seen before. At the center of the largest plaza stood a statue. Not tall or intimidating, not a symbol of power, but simple and human. A figure wrapped in a modest cloth, one hand extended open, offering, not commanding. Jonah's likeness captured the essence of his gift, not a conqueror, not a warrior, but a teacher, a survivor, a spark of hope. Saley stood before the visitors, her silver eyes bright. Years had shaped her, grief and triumph etched into her face, but her presence radiated strength and wisdom. She had grown into her role, not through fear or obedience, but through understanding, choice, and courage. "He arrived from the sky," she said, her voice carrying across the plaza, steady and clear. "He had nothing. No weapons, no shield, no advantage. Only his mind, his courage, and the will to act. And he gave us more than life. He gave us hope." The explorers whispered among themselves. Some came as skeptics, expecting primitive survival. Others sought knowledge, fearing the unknown. But all fell silent at her words and at the energy that pulsed through the city. Saley guided them through streets lined with learners, children and adults alike, experimenting, testing, creating. "He taught us that survival is not just living," she explained. "It is asking questions, taking risks, sharing knowledge, and rising again after every failure. He taught us that even when stripped of everything, humans find a way to build hope." One child touched the statue gently, eyes wide. "Did he really come from the stars?" she asked. Saley smiled softly, brushing a strand of silver hair from her face. "Yes, and he left us a gift we could never repay, but we honor it by living well, by choosing courage, and by helping each other. That is what humans leave behind, not destruction, not conquest, but change and hope." The wind stirred the crystals, creating a soft song that filled the plaza. Light shimmered over the streets, over the gardens, over the machines humming with quiet energy. It was as if the world itself remembered Jonah's courage, amplifying it through the lives he had touched. Saley raised her eyes to the violet sky, now tinged with gold and pink. "Humans are dangerous," she said quietly, a smile playing at her lips. "Not because they take, not because they fight, but because even with nothing they can choose to create. They can choose to inspire, and that is a power no fear can destroy." The visitors looked up at the sky, imagining the small pod falling, a fragile human alone in an alien world. And yet, that one human, stripped of all, had left a legacy far greater than any empire or weapon. The plaza hummed with life and laughter, experiments and energy. The young learners ran through the streets, their voices ringing like crystal bells. They had never known Jonah, yet they knew his lessons, his spirit, his courage. And in every pulse of the city, every flicker of light, every note of energy, his gift remained. Humans, Saley realized, had a way of leaving behind more than just themselves. Even when lost, even when broken, they left sparks, sparks that could ignite entire worlds. And this world, once silent and frozen, now lived in the light of a single spark. Jonah had fallen from the sky with nothing, and the world had risen with everything he had given.